this section, we'll talk about the essentials that an executive should know about the Australia wine regions. And when I say executive essentials, what we mean by that, among other things, are four key points. You should know what the grapes are for a given region. You should know what flavors and aromas are typical for that wine, from those grapes in that region. You should know how to pair that wine with food, or how to pair food with that wine, both directions. And you should know certain bottles that are legendary, or certain bottles that are iconic or recognizable, or that your clients or that your coworkers would in fact recognize. The bottles on the wine list that no one should not know, that you really should know. So, in looking at Australia's essentials in particular, those specific to Australia, one thing to note is that Australia does well in various vinifera. Now, vinifera is just a word for wine grapes. Australia is doing a very solid job across a wide variety now, and they're doing a high-volume job across a wide variety of grapes, often called international grapes. They can grow Cabernet, they grow Merlot. They're doing a lot of different grapes. But the roots for Australia are from the Rhone Valley, and a particular grape, which is known as the Syrah grape in the Rhone Valley, and in Australia it's known as the Shiraz grape. I think it's interesting when you look at where the roots are for a particular wine, and where those roots spread throughout the world. So here, the home, the birthplace for Syrah, the grape, is in the Rhone Valley, but it does tremendously well in Australia, and it's now really associated with Australia as well as in the Rhone, although known as Shiraz. If you had to remember one bottle in particular, or you wanted to know sort of what's the legendary bottle of the region or of Australia, and of Shiraz, because the two go hand in hand. Australia is known for Shiraz, and Shiraz is known to be particularly elite or well done in a wine called Grange, made by Penfolds, also typically referred to just simply as Grange. Well, in Australia, if you look geographically, a lot of the winemaking takes place around the southern area, or the southern border. And as I mentioned, they put out a whole variety of grapes. So here they do well in Cabernet, they do well in Merlot. They're putting out quality Chardonnay as well. But in particular, their identity grape is Shiraz. Right? Shiraz is the same thing as Syrah. So let's take a look at Shiraz, also known as Syrah in the Rhone Valley. So Shiraz, if someone brought you a Shiraz, what would you expect? What would you expect in the glass? The typical flavors and aromas. Here, what you could expect would be jam, raspberry, tar, the smell of a freshly tarred driveway. But that jamminess is what I often pick up. And I pick that jamminess up more in Shiraz, which is Syrah grown in Australia, than I do in Syrah grown in the Rhone Valley. So in the Rhone Valley, you get a bit more smoke and let's say earthiness. And in Australian Shiraz, often I pick up a little bit more jamminess. But I leave that to your palates. These are things that are commonly associated with the grape. Also, I would say black pepper. I would remember black pepper. That pepperiness seems to be very present with Shiraz or Syrah wines. So how would you pair that with food? Well, pepperiness in wine goes well with pepperiness in food. So in terms of the meats, lamb, sausage, grilled meats, this is a big red wine. It can go well with big red wine foods. But also think about that pepperiness. So anything with peppery sauces or pungent herbs, I think that would be a good match for a Shiraz. In terms of the bottles to know, and here I mentioned this briefly, Penfolds Grange. So here, Grange is the most sought after bottle, and the most expensive bottle. It's a collector's item or collector's bottle. So many bottles, if the winemaker has a status over a number of years or at a high enough level, they become collectible. Grange is in that category, and this is a wine driven by Shiraz. So to reiterate, various vinifera. So Australia is doing well across a variety of categories and improving. Rhone roots. So the Rhone Valley is really where the birthplace is of Syrah. Syrah is now in Australia, known as Shiraz, locally in Australia. Shiraz is a huge success story for Australia, and Penfolds Grange is the highest level, or the highest instantiation, the highest example of that Shiraz.